आमच्या आजोबांनी आजी या पहिलीचे उत्पन्न हे सांडून आम्ही वचपा भायल्या देशा आम्ही वयचे ना आणि आमकां भायर कोण जागा दिवचो ना तेन्ना तुमी तोंड घेवन गेल्ले कोता येता हांगासरले तुमी आमकां हांगासर नाका आणि आमकां फॅक्टरी बी नाका.
Chinubai stays in Arla, a small village tucked away in this fertile valley in Goa in southwestern India. Nature has been generous to the people here. The soil is fertile and the water plentiful. Throughout the year, their springs and rivulets supply water to their paddy fields, their orchards, their bamboo groves and their cashew plantations. These Goans have lived in self-sustaining communities for generations and have developed deep emotional ties with nature. For instance, they will never cut a palm tree. If they have to, they will do so only after begging for the tree's forgiveness. Not very far from Chinubai's village Arla flows the river Mandvi. It is the biggest river in Goa and indeed one of its lifelines. Kamlakar Sadhle, an architect and an environmentalist based in Goa, elaborates.
These two rivers, Mandvi and Juari, are termed as lifelines of Goa because the major activities, economic activities, farming and all sort of activities are confined to these areas. Major population is also settled along this area. Major cultural and whatever is the Goa's heritage is also settled along this area.
It was in 1988 that Dupont, the American multinational, decided to set up its plant in this part of Goa. The plant was to make Nylon 66, a key ingredient in the manufacture of tires. In this endeavor, it tied up with the Thapars, an Indian group, and became Thapar Dupont Limited. They decided that the plant would come up here on this plateau, just 200 meters above Chinubai's village Arla. Janu Kolekar is a shepherd and a farmer who stays in this village adjacent to the site where the Dupont plant would have come up. He still remembers Dupont's keenness to acquire more land.
ते नायलॉन वाले आमकां सांगताले की तुम्ही ह्या पारंपरिक ही शेतां घेऊन कित्याक बसल्या ह्या शेतान तुमकां कांयच मेळचे ना ही गोरवां बोकडां म्हशी हे घेऊन तुमकां कांयच फायदो मेळटा ही शेतां तुम्ही हे करू नका तुमकां ती जागा आमकां भाड्यान दिया आम्ही तुमकां पैसे दिता.
Janu Kolekar and other farmers clung on to their farms. In the initial stages, they did not actively oppose the Dupont plant. However, some environmentalists like Claude Alvarez were already active.
The moment we came to know that there was this plant coming up, and it was an entirely new subject for us, Nylon 66. We sent out a search to all the environmental groups all over the world, and environment groups are pretty good at doing that. We got in touch with Greenpeace, we got in touch with the International Organization of Consumer Unions, there was Martin Abraham there, we got in touch with a very renowned toxicology writer, Barry Castleman.
Inquiries revealed that Dupont was indeed the most polluting company in the United States in 1989. And that 17 of the chemicals involved in the manufacture of Nylon 66 included 4 carcinogens and were all classified as hazardous substances by the United States government.
Because we were constantly able to supply the village groups with the information that they required on this, they were very well briefed, particularly on DuPont's record. And as an example, I can state that when we got this Hold the Applause document produced by Greenpeace, which gave the latest data on the extent to which DuPont is polluting the American continent and the rest of the planet. We got that photocopied immediately and sent to Dr. Dattaram Desai. So he used to have the latest information that was available from the international groups on DuPont.
Dattaram Desai is a man who all the villagers know and trust. He is a doctor and stays in Savoi-Veri, a village 2 kilometers from what was to be the Thapar Dupont site. Armed with all the information, he and some of the villagers questioned the Dupont officers.
Now when we went to the Thapar Dupont authorities, what they said that the effluents that will come out from the chimney as well as from the effluent discharge plant discharge, they will be cleaner than the air and water that is in the area. This was their argument.
Dattaram Desai was to become very vocal in his opposition to the Nylon 66 plant. And Thapar Dupont found its own way of retaliating. It opened a free clinic for the villagers in this building in Keri. This clinic was only a stone's throw away from Dr. Dattaram Desai's own clinic. Clearly, this was a message for the doctor.
So they wanted to pressurize me by disturbing in my profession.
Thapar Dupont also spent a lot of money on building up an eco-friendly image. For instance, this full-page advertisement claimed, "We will not make, handle, use, sell, transport or dispose of a product unless we can do so safely and in an environmentally sound manner." The villagers, however, were not convinced. And for good reasons too. Factories and mines nearby had been reckless polluters of the rivers of Goa. Fishermen like Mahadev were bitter.
हांगा नुस्तें मेळपाक कितें जालां, हे कंपनीनी म्हाल धुवन पाणी दर्याक सोडलें आसा आनी ते दर्याक सोडल्या कारणान ते धूल पाण्याक लागून मासे हांगा रावना, ती मासे सकयल वयता आनी हाजे पयलीं हांगा खुबे म्हण पडटाले. ह्या पाण्याक लागून आतां 10 वर्सां जालीं खुबे पडना.
A Thapar Dupont pipeline for carrying effluents was to go through this village, Savoi-Veri. The village council, however, refused permission.
आणि जेन्ना आमकां तें कळ्ळें की प्रदूषित अशा प्रकारचें उदक, घाण उदक ते न्हंयन सोडटले, तेन्ना आमी ताका विरोध केलो. तेन्ना खंयचे परिस्थितीन ती पायपलायन आमी घालूंक दिवचे ना अशें ग्रामस्थांच्या वतीन आमी तांकां कळयल्लें.
Mohan Varekar, the village council head of Savoi-Veri, teaches in this school at Vadavai across the river Mandvi. One day at school he was told that he had a visitor. He recalls.
जेन्ना थापर डिपोणान हांगासर लोकांचो विरोध जावं लागलो तेन्ना खंयचे परिस्थितीन तांकां सहकार्य जाय आशिल्लें आनी आमचो पंचायतीचो ताका विरोध आशिल्लो, म्हाजोय खुद्द ताका विरोध आशिल्लो आनी ताका लागून तेंच्यांनी एक मनीस बेळग्यान हाडलो म्हाज्या हायस्कुलान आनी थंय ताणें सांगलें की तूं विरोध करूं नाका, तूं ह्या कारखान्यांक सपोर्ट कर आनी जर सपोर्ट करीत जाल्यार तुका एक एम्ब्युलन्स आनी एक फ्लॅट दितात.
Varekar refused, but because of such incidents, villagers were gradually becoming wary about Thapar Dupont's plans. They had learnt that the Nylon 66 plant would be consuming 2.5 million litres of water daily, and over 1 million litre of effluents, presumably treated, would be discharged into the Mandvi river. There were lots of debates and discussions amongst the villagers. But it was only in 1994 that the villagers really got a taste of what was in store for them. Thapar Dupont started levelling this area by using explosives. 200 meters below in Arla, villagers like Chinubai found themselves in a state of despair.
ते आमचें घर हें वयलो नाच जालो, सुरींग घातले तिणी फॅक्टरी करपाक, जमीन तयार करपाक तयारी केल्ली तेन्ना ते आवाजांनी सुरंगाचे आमगेली जमीन फूट गेली, आस्ते आस्ते फूट गेली आनी भितर लॅम्पा लागली, माती भितर जिरपा लागली. तेन्ना आमी हें घर सोडलें आनी दुसरे कडेन बांदपाक तयारी केली.
Even today, many houses in Arla have cracks, and like Chinubai, several villagers have had to construct new houses after their old ones collapsed because of the explosions. This well is fed by underground springs which supply clear drinking water throughout the year. However, during the explosions in 1994, the water could not be used for drinking. Vinita Jattar explains.
आणि इतल्यासून ते आशिल्लें तें बसून तांबडे जाल्लें, ते आमी फिल्टर करून पितालीं.
Dupont had also installed powerful pumps to extract large quantities of groundwater which they needed for construction purposes. This affected the water supply in the streams and wells in the villages close by.
ती अवयन आमची झाडापाडां मरतली आशिल्ली. आमकां पयलीं सद्या उदक मेळनाशिल्लें, पाणी मेळनाशिल्लें पिवपाक. ती हें पाणी सगळें तिणी ओडून घेतलें. तेन्ना ही आमची झाडां मरपाक लागलीं.
Partha Dupont had also hired a large number of security personnel who managed to seriously antagonize the local population.
आमी बोकडा घेवन रानान वयता आसतना एक कंपनीवाले आमकां वाटेन वचून दिनाशिल्ले. तेंच्यांनी ते गेट घातलेली, ते भितरल्यान आमकां वचपाक दिनाशिल्ले. ते आमकां सांगताले तुमी भितरल्यान वचपाक मेळचें ना तुमकां म्हणून. तुमकां वाट दिवचे ना. आनी ही आमची पारंपारीक वाट आशिल्ली. रानान वचपाची आमची जो आमचो धंदो आशिल्लो, पारंपारीक धंदो, तो बंद जातालो न्ही. वाट जर मेळना जाल्यार आमकां बोकडा चरोवंक मेळना, गोरवां चरोवंक मेळना जाल्यार धंदो आमचो पारंपारीक बंद पडलो. म्हणून आमकां राग येयलो. ही आमकां फॅक्टरी नाका आनी ही कंपनी नाका.
Villagers in these areas are also extremely dependent on the surrounding forests for their fodder and fuel wood needs. However, once the Dupont plant started coming up, villagers were confronted by the security guards. Dried up wells, muddy drinking water, cracked up walls, harassment by security personnel. The villagers were reaching the limits of their tolerance. Matters came to a head on the 12th of October 1994.
50-60 वर्षापासून आम्ही इथं आमचा दसरा उत्सव साजरा करतो आणि कंपनीने ही जागा घेतल्या कारणाने आणि इथं कंपाऊंड घातल्या कारणाने आम्हाला या जागेवर दसरा साजरा करायला मिळेना. म्हणून आम्ही या लोकांबरोबर मिळून मिसळून आम्ही सर्वांनी हे कंपाऊंड तोडून टाकलं आणि आमचा वंश परंपरेने चालून आलेला हा दसरा उत्सव आम्ही इथं साजरा करतो.
The real agitation had only just begun. Villagers now started organizing a focused campaign against Dupont.
आम्ही त्यांचा आमचे सगळे काम उरतालें, शिपणें उरतालें, झाडां शिंपपाची, जेवण करपाचें आमचें उरतालें. आमकां दिसभर 2 दीस पासून जेवणाची एके चायेन रावताले आमी. जेवण आमकां खाना मेळनाशिल्ली. जेवण अजिबात मेळनाशिल्लें आमकां जेवपाक. टायमूय मेळनासलो आनी घराकूय येवंक मेळनाशिल्लें आमकां. भायल्या भायरूच उरताले आमी.
These were the barefoot activists. They had no phones or faxes, no pagers or email, no offices and no money. Only a sense of collective anger, a sense of solidarity. Arjun, for instance, helped out by offering his truck for the campaign. He even put in his own fuel. All this meant a drop in his earnings, but it never mattered to him.
माझी पिकअप आहा न्हू, तरी लोकां येवप हाडप, खंय मिटींग आसा मिटींगे व्हरप आनी मोर्चा जाली मोर्चा व्हरप, अशें करून म्हाजे गाडयेचें हें. आनी पयशे कोणा कडल्यान म्हणून घेतलो, सगळेच आमचे लोक. तेका लागून हांवें अशी गाडी चलयली फुकट.
Arjun's son also drove the truck. He recollects how Partha Dupont tried to co-opt him.
फोंड्या तांच्या ऑफिस आयले कंपनीचे. ते आमकां वळखता म्हणटा थंय म्हाका आपोवन व्हरताले आनी सांगताले की तुमची एक गाडी आसा न्हू, तुमी मोर्चा बिरचा वयता गाडी घेवन, ती गाडी घेवन वचो नाका, तुमकां आनी एक गाडी काडून दिता, तुमी 3 जाण भाव न्हू म्हणजे 2 जाण भाव म्हणपाक सर्विसी लायता वयर. अशें म्हणून सांगून ते आमकां फसयताले. आमी नाका, तुमची गाडये नाका आनी आमकां कांय नाका तुमचें.
In any case, most villagers were clear by now that they had no use for the jobs that Partha Dupont would supposedly create.
ते आमकां सांगताले कंपनी येयल्यार नोकरी मेळटली आसली, पूण ते कंपनीक आमी इन्क्वायरी केल्या ते म्हणटाले की BA BCom जाल्ले. आमचे भुरगे काय BA BCom शिकलेले नाशिल्ले न्ही, आमी अनपड लोक आशिल्ले.
There had been several incidents of villagers giving vent to their feelings by damaging the properties belonging to Partha Dupont. Several arrests were made and Section 144 was imposed. This meant that arrests could be made if 4 people or more were found to have gathered together.
पूण आमच्या जागेन आमी फिरूंक शकता न्हू, आमी कित्याक फिरूंक शकना?
हो प्रश्न जेन्ना लोकां मुखार पडलो तेन्ना लोकांक चड राग येयलो. आमच्या जागेन आमकां 2 दिसां पयलीं येयला आनी आमकां दादागिरी दाखयता. हे खंयचो कायदो जालो?
The police used to go to the houses of the people. They used to search the houses as if it was some freedom movement. During the freedom movement, as the British and Portuguese people did it, police did it. Similarly, they were doing it.
Around 500 villagers went to the Goa Legislative Assembly in Panjim, the state capital. Here they presented a memorandum demanding that the Dupont project be scrapped. But closer to the site, more action was taking place. The Thapar Dupont factory site could only be approached by this road. It was here at this point that the villagers dug a trench to prevent the movement of vehicles to the plant site. The police responded by arresting Dr. Dattaram Desai and 2 others. They were taken to this police station a few kilometers away.
There were 4 policemen there. They caught hold of me and they put a scarf on my eyes. I asked them, for what are you doing all this? Nobody uttered a single word. Then they held my hands back and they took me to the other room. I don't know who was there. And they stripped me completely. They removed all my clothes and they beat me with belt on my palms as well as soles.
The police forced Dr. Desai and others to fill the trench. The villagers were outraged. Around 1,200 villagers gathered in protest in front of the police station.
आम्ही एक फाटोफाट ताका धरला म्हणून थंय गेले आम्ही पुलिशे कडेन आनी तांकां विचारलें ताका धरून तुमी आमच्या लिडरा तुमी भितर कित्याक घालून दवरला तेन्ना ताका आमी सोडले शिवाय भायर सुटचे ना आमचे मनीस आमकां जाय मार तुमी दवरतले जाल्यार आमचे सगळे लोकांक दवरा एकट्या दोगांक दवरूंक मेळचें ना.
Under pressure, the doctor and others were released. But the situation remained very tense. This graffiti, which came up close to the village Arla, can still be seen today. It was a clear and a definite warning to the Inspector General of Police. The stage was set for a confrontation, and it took place here on this road at Arla. Vinaya recalls what happened on the 23rd of January 1995.
हळदी कुंकूचा दिवस होता. हळदी कुंकू केल्यावर आम्ही हे सगळे रस्त्यावर आलो. रस्त्यावर आल्यानंतर आम्हाला एक गाडी येते सारखी वाटली नवीन प्रकारची गाडी. मग आम्ही सगळेजण बघायला लागलो. बघता बघता आम्हाला वाटलं की फॉरेन गाडी आहे म्हणून. मग आम्ही इथे पुढच्या वर्षीचा विचार करत होतो कसं काय करावं म्हणून. मग ते नायलन गाडीला आम्ही वरती जायलाच दिलं नाही.
The bus was carrying American visitors to the Dupont plant, but the women forced it to turn back. And then, anticipating the police, the villagers waited. It was to be a long wait. And the next day, the newspapers had it all. Anand, a student who was present during the firing, recollects.
हांगा एक काजीचे झाड आशिल्ले आणि त्या काजीच्या झाडा पोंदा सगळे बायलो आणि चेडवो बसलेली. हे सायडीन सगळे दादले आणि भुरगे बसलेले. थोड्या वेळान ह्या रस्त्या वयल्यान अशे पुलीस आयले. पुलिसा वांगडा एक कलेक्टराची जीप आणि 2 मामलेदाराची जीपी आयल्यो आणि आमकां पळोवन ते हांगाच रावले. हांगा रावले आणि थोड्या वेळान पुलीस जे आशिल्ले बसीचे ते 4-5 पुलीस सकयल देवले आणि फायरिंग करपाक सुरवात केली.
गाडयो घेवन आयले, काणयेंतल्यान देवले आनी गोळीबार सुरवात केलो. आणि हे बेकायदेशीर आशिल्लें त्यामुळे लोकांक चड तिडक केली आणि त्या तिडकीन लोकांनी दगडफेक करपाक सुरवात केली.
फायरिंग केल्यावर लोक त्यांच्यावर पण दगड मारायला लागले. पुलीस पळू लागले. पळता या बाजूने लोक थोडे पोलीस या बाजूने धावायला लागले. धावून एक पोलीस येऊन या ओढ्यात पडला खाली. पाणी फुल भरलेलं होतं. पाण्यात पडल्यावर त्या बाजूने एकटा माणूस आला आणि त्याच्यावर मोठा दगड घालायला शोधायला लागला. म्हणून आम्ही त्याला काय म्हटलं तू थांब जरा वेळ आम्ही त्याला वर काढतो मग मारायचं आहे तर मार. कशाला तो आमचाच माणूस आहे त्याला मारून काही उपयोग होणार नाही. तेव्हा जो अमेरिकनला मारायचं असले तर ते पळून गेले होते पूर्वी.
In the firing that took place, several villagers received bullet injuries. Nilesh Nayak, a 25-year-old man, was shot dead at point-blank range. The news of his death spread like wildfire. Villagers got together in large numbers in Ponda, a bustling town nearby. They declared that Ponda would come to a complete standstill the next day. which is what happened on the 24th of January 1995. The only action that took place was outside this building, which housed the Thapa Dupont offices. Angry villagers were to storm the premises.
थापर डिपॉन्टचं ऑफिस होतं. त्या ऑफिसमध्ये गेलो आणि त्यांच्या बॅग होत्या, पैशाच्या 2 बॅग होत्या. त्यात 100ची बंडल होती, ती सगळी आम्ही काढली. त्याच्यात 2 पिस्तूल होती, 2-3 पिस्तूल होती. ती खाली आणली आणि रस्त्यावर आणून त्यांना आग लावली सगळ्या पैशाने त्यांच्या.
आम्ही लोकांक कंट्रोल करपाक केले की अशें करू नाका, तशें करू नाका, तांचे डॉक्युमेंट्स ते जाळू नाका. तेन्ना लोकांचे एक मनान जे मूड आशिल्लो तो तांचो सामको हे कितें तरी करपाचें अशें आशिल्लें तांच्या मनान. म्हणून तांणी कितें केलें, तिडकी भितर ती उजो लायलो. त्या सगळे डॉक्युमेंट्स आनी पैशांची जी बॅग आशिल्ली ताका सगळ्याक उजो लायलो.
People were angry, formidable anger was there, and they were moving with that heat and anger. But they were angry against TDL, they were angry against the government. So they did not attack anybody except government and TDL.
On the same day, the village council of Keri passed a resolution. The Thapa Dupont plant was not to be allowed in the village. The next day, the body of Nilesh Nayak was cremated at the Dupont site. The villagers had warned the Thapa Dupont security staff that their presence would provoke more violence. They heeded the warning and stayed away. By now, the tide of popular sentiment in Goa was totally against the Nylon 66 plant. Thapa Dupont started making some last-ditch efforts. They tried lobbying with the Prime Minister's office at New Delhi. Nothing was to come out of it.
At the last moment, when the project was almost going, their general manager phoned me from his residence and he asked me, "Doctor, is there any way out?" I said, "There is only way out. You have to pack up from here." So he said, "See, we have put so much money here, we have invested." So I said, "You should have thought it before. Now the only way out is to pack up."
Pack up and leave was what Thapa Dupont eventually had to do. And gradually, life came back to normal in this part of Goa. Today, the shepherds are back to grazing their sheep where the Nylon 66 plant was to be. Nobody stops them. Nobody harasses them. There are no security guards, and there are no walls. The wells are full, and the villagers do not have to strain the water before drinking. They also do not have to worry while collecting their fodder and their fuel wood. Villagers like Chinnubai have clearly made their choice.
नोकरी मेळोन आमकां कितें फायदो? एकट्या कोणाक घरांत नोकरी मेळ्ळी आनी आमी 25 लोक घरांत आसा, तो कितें खातलो आशिल्लो? आनी इतली वर्सां आमी नोकरीच करून कितें पोट भरल्या? आतां आमी नोकरी केल्या, आमी हे याप्तीर काम करून पोट भरिना. ती आमचीच याप्त आमी काम करून पोट भरतली. तुमी हांगा येवच नाका.